The sky above Earth was filled with fire. The alien fleets had arrived in numbers beyond count. Missiles were launched, defense systems activated, every machine created for war was used. None of it worked. Every strike failed. Every shield collapsed. Weapons that humans had trusted for decades were useless. Cities shook as bombardments rained down. Satellites were destroyed in seconds. Communication lines failed one after another. Armies tried to regroup, but orders turned into confusion. There was no control left. Every weapon humanity had built became nothing more than broken metal. On the ground, people hid in silence. Families crowded into shelters, unsure if they would see another sunrise. Streets that once carried noise and life were empty. Fear replaced every sound. Humanity realized the truth. Their end was no longer distant. It was close, pressing down with each passing hour. Above, the alien fleets blocked out the stars. They did not come to threaten or to demand. They came to erase. Their confidence was clear. To them, humanity was not worth mercy. It was only a matter of time before Earth would be nothing but dust. In the middle of this despair, the leaders gathered. Scientists, generals, and politicians sat together in one place. They brought reports, numbers, and plans. None of it mattered. A scientist suggested new theories, but they would take years to build. A general proposed one last strike, but it had already failed once before. A politician whispered about surrender, but everyone knew surrender would not save them. The enemy did not want submission. They wanted an end. Arguments filled the chamber. Voices rose and fell, but no solution lasted longer than a few sentences. One by one, every idea collapsed. The smartest minds of Earth had nothing left to offer. For the first time, silence ruled. They all knew it. Humanity had run out of answers. The silence stretched until one voice spoke. It was calm and steady, not loud but certain. It said machines had failed. Systems had failed. Perhaps they needed to seek help from someone who thought differently, someone who had lived through battles not with technology but with experience. The suggestion was simple. Call the old warrior. The idea felt strange. Many doubted it. What could an old man offer when armies and weapons had failed? Yet desperation left no other choice. Messengers were sent. The council waited in heavy silence. Hours passed before the doors finally opened. The old warrior entered. His steps were slow, but his presence filled the room. He had lived through wars long before many of the people in the chamber were born. His eyes carried years of battles, victories, and losses. He was not dressed like a leader, not carrying a weapon, but the weight he carried was stronger than anyone else there. No one spoke as he walked forward. He placed something on the table. It was not a machine, not a device, not a new plan. It was a book. Old, worn, its cover torn by time. The council members stared at it in confusion. They had expected strategies and weapons. Instead, they saw paper and ink. The warrior looked at them and finally spoke. His voice was rough but steady. He said this book carried the story of a man who was not remembered as a soldier or a commander. He was remembered as a shadow. A sniper who fought alone, who waited with patience, and who never missed. The room fell silent again. Some frowned in disbelief, others shook their heads. But no one interrupted. The warrior's words carried a weight that silenced even doubt. For the first time since the invasion began, the council did not argue. They listened. And in that moment, though small and fragile, a spark of hope returned. The book sat on the table. It looked old, its cover worn, its pages faded, yet the old warrior placed it down with purpose. The leaders stared at it with doubt. They had been waiting for weapons, for strategies, not for an object from the past. The warrior spoke in a calm voice. He said this was not just paper, it was memory, and memory carried more weight than any machine. Several people shook their heads. A scientist said they were wasting time. A general asked for real answers. A politician dismissed it as nonsense. But the warrior ignored them. He opened the book. The room grew quiet. The book told the story of a sniper. He was not known for strength or rank but for patience. He could lie still for days waiting for the right moment. When he fired, he never missed. His enemies never saw him, they only felt the loss after his bullet reached its target. Armies feared him because one man with one rifle could decide the outcome of a battle. His story was not of noise or numbers but of silence and certainty. The warrior closed the book. He told the council that this man was more than a soldier. He was proof that one person with skill and will could change the course of a war. While modern systems were built to overwhelm with numbers, this sniper succeeded by choosing the right moment. He needed only one shot to end what seemed unstoppable. Someone asked if the sniper was real. The warrior answered that he was. Long ago he had walked away from war. He had not looked for glory or reward. He had vanished into silence. But the warrior had never forgotten him. He knew the man still lived. The council grew restless. They asked how one man could matter against fleets that covered the sky. The warrior told them their machines had failed because they relied on power. The sniper would succeed because he relied on patience. He did not waste bullets. He did not need many. He needed only one. The decision was made to search for him. Old records were opened. Forgotten files were checked. His trail was faint, buried by time, but the search continued. 4 days they looked. At last they found him. He was 80 years old now. His face was lined with age. His hands trembled when he was still. His back was bent. Yet when they looked into his eyes they saw the same fire that once guided his rifle. It had not gone out. He listened when they told him why they had come. At first he refused. He said war had taken enough from him. He said he had seen too much death. He had put away the rifle because it had taken everything. He had tried to live in silence. But the messenger answered with only one line. Humanity had no one else left. He was the last hope. The sniper was silent for a long time. Then he stood, slow but steady, and opened an old case that rested in his home. Inside was his rifle. It was old but clean. He had kept it ready even when he had sworn never to use it again. When his hand touched the metal, it stopped shaking. His eyes narrowed. It was as if time had turned back. They gave him one mission. He did not need to fight armies. He did not need to destroy fleets. He had one target. The core that powered the invaders. The single point that held their strength together. If it was destroyed, their force would collapse. The sniper did not ask questions. He did not speak of glory. He only said one sentence. One shot was all that was needed. The council sat in silence. They had placed the future of humanity not in machines, not in plans, but in one old man with a rifle. And for the first time in weeks, there was hope. It was small, but it was real. The sniper sat alone, his mind caught between the past and the present. Age had slowed his body, but his thoughts were sharp. He remembered battles fought long ago. He remembered the weight of each shot, the faces of those who never returned, and the silence that followed every trigger pull. War had taken much from him, and he had promised himself never to return to it. Yet now, with humanity at the edge of destruction, he was being asked to do the one thing only he could. The warrior who had brought him back did not speak in long sentences. He simply said that machines had failed, that armies had broken, and that the eye of the sniper was all that remained. The sniper looked at his trembling hands. His voice was low when he asked what would happen if he failed. The answer came without hesitation. If he failed, humanity would end. There was no second chance. But the warrior added one more thing. He said he did not believe the sniper would fail, because the eye that had never missed was still alive behind the years. The sniper did not respond at first. He thought of the weight of this request. He was old. His bones ached. His body no longer obeyed him as it once had. But he also remembered the calm that came every time he held his rifle. It was not about the weapon. It was about control, patience, and belief in a single moment. He took out his rifle. The case had stayed closed for years, but it was clean. His hands, though lined with age, became steady as they touched the metal. The weapon was familiar, like an extension of himself. He cleaned it slowly, checking every piece, every screw, every line. Each movement was careful, not rushed. It was the same routine he had followed in his youth, and with each step, the years between then and now seemed to fade. Alone, he studied the target he had been given. It was not a soldier, not a building, not a general. It was something far greater, the power source of the alien fleet, the single weak point buried deep within their system. He knew it would not be easy. Distance, movement, defenses, everything stood in the way. Yet the simplicity of the mission made sense to him. It was not about fighting an army. It was about one shot. That was something he understood better than anyone. He remembered long nights from his past, waiting in silence, holding his breath as hours turned into days. He remembered the patience that broke enemies before the bullet even left the barrel. He remembered victories no one celebrated because only he knew they had begun and ended with his rifle. Those memories returned now, not as burdens but as reminders of what he had once been. The world around him waited. Leaders who once commanded armies now placed their faith in him. Soldiers who had lost hope now watched with quiet respect. They did not see an old man. They saw the last chance of their kind. And though no one said it aloud, they all believed that if anyone could succeed, it was him. In private, he whispered to himself. He spoke to the ghosts of the past, to the men he had fought beside, to those who had never returned. He told them this would be his final mission. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for the survival of his people. He did not expect thanks. He did not want honor. He only wanted to finish what history had chosen for him. On the day of departure, he held his rifle close and closed his eyes. He breathed slowly, steadying his heart. He had lived a long life, but everything he had done led him here. Every bullet fired in the past was nothing more than preparation for this one shot. He spoke only once before leaving. His words were simple, plain, and without pride. He said he had never aimed at soldiers. He had always aimed at history. And now, for the last time, he would pull the trigger. The fleets filled the sky, their lights brighter than the stars they covered. The alien armada moved forward without fear, certain that Earth was finished. Their weapons burned through the last defenses, their ships stretched across space in endless lines. Humanity had nothing left to fight them. All that remained was the old sniper, one man with one rifle, standing against the largest force ever seen. He was calm. Age had slowed him, but not his focus. As he prepared, the noise of war faded from his mind. He no longer heard the explosions or the panic of soldiers around him. His world became narrow, reduced to breath, sight, and the target that waited far ahead. The weak point had been found. It was hidden deep within the enemy structure, a core that powered the entire fleet. It was small, protected, and far away. To strike it required not strength, not speed, but a single perfect shot. The sniper studied it as if nothing else existed. His eyes settled on the path, his breathing slowed, and his heart grew steady. Memories returned, not as distraction but as guidance. He remembered the countless times he had waited in silence, the countless moments when patience had decided everything. He remembered that war was never about many shots, but about the one that mattered. His hands, though old, no longer trembled. They moved with the certainty of habit, the kind that time could not erase. Those around him did not speak. Soldiers, leaders, and watchers held their breath. They all knew this was the last attempt. If it failed, there would be nothing after it. The weight of humanity rested on a man who had already given his life to war once before. Yet in the silence before the shot, there was no fear. There was only focus. He pulled the rifle close, aligned the sight, and waited. The alien fleet moved in patterns, unaware that one eye had marked them. The sniper slowed his breath until it was almost nothing. His finger rested on the trigger. The seconds stretched. Time itself seemed to stop. Then the shot came. The rifle cracked once. The bullet, small and almost invisible in the vastness of space, traveled its path. To anyone watching, It seemed impossible that such a tiny thing could matter. But the sniper knew. He had always known. The bullet struck the core. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then light erupted. The core shattered, and the energy it carried tore through the enemy's ships. One by one, their systems failed. Warships collapsed, weapons shut down, and engines broke apart. The fleet that had seemed endless began to fall apart in silence and fire. Across Earth, people looked to the sky. They saw the enemy breaking, not from armies, not from machines, but from a single shot. The invasion that had crushed every weapon was undone in one moment. The sniper lowered his rifle slowly. His eyes stayed on the sky as the fleet tore itself apart. He did not smile. He did not speak. He simply breathed out, steady and calm, as if releasing the last weight he had carried for a lifetime. Those who had watched him stood frozen. They could not believe what they had seen. But the truth was undeniable. The war had turned with one bullet. The galaxy that had seemed untouchable had been shaken to its core by a human hand. The sniper whispered quietly, words almost lost in the noise of the collapsing fleets. One shot. That was all it ever took. The battlefield grew quiet, though the wreckage of the alien fleet still burned across the sky. What had seemed endless only moments ago was now scattered fragments drifting into the void. Humanity stood on the edge of disbelief, unable to grasp that the war which had crushed every defense had ended with a single shot. Silence spread across the command halls and shelters. People stared at screens, mouths open, hearts pounding, trying to understand what had happened. Leaders gathered again, but their tone was different now. Where once they had spoken in fear, now they spoke in awe. Every plan, every weapon, every calculation had failed. Yet the old sniper, a man too old to fight, too fragile to carry the weight of war, had done what entire nations could not. There were no cheers, no cries of triumph. The moment was too heavy for that. What echoed instead was quiet respect, the kind given only when something greater than victory had been witnessed. The sniper himself sat apart. His rifle rested across his knees, the metal dark against his weathered hands. His face showed no pride, only the calm of someone who had done what needed to be done. Generals approached him, men who had commanded armies, and bowed their heads. Scientists who had built machines capable of leveling cities lowered their eyes in silence. They knew what it meant. The age of machines had failed, but the human spirit had endured. News spread across Earth, not in shouts but in whispers. Children were told that the galaxy had been turned away by one man. Families repeated the story again and again, as if saying it aloud made it real. People lit candles, prayed, and wept. Not because the danger had passed, but because they had seen what humanity truly was. No matter the scale of the enemy, no matter the power of their weapons, humans could not be erased. In the ruins of the alien fleet, signals crackled across the stars. Civilizations that had once feared humanity now watched in silence. Enemies who had mocked Earth grew quiet. The lesson spread quickly. A species that could not be broken by fire, that could not be crushed by numbers, had revealed its truth. Humanity was not only a race of tools and machines, it was a race of will, of eyes that could see the smallest path, of hands that could steady when the galaxy shook. The sniper was asked to speak. At first he refused. He was not a man of speeches, only of silence and waiting. But when pressed, he stood slowly and looked at those around him. His voice was low, but it carried. He spoke not of glory, not of his skill, but of the lesson written in every war he had fought. Victory, he said, does not come from the number of weapons, but from the resolve to use them when it matters. One man, one choice, one shot can decide everything. Those words were carried across Earth, written into books, repeated in songs, etched into walls. Generations would remember them. They would not remember the generals who failed, or the machines that collapsed, but they would remember the quiet figure who showed that even in the face of annihilation, humans did not surrender. The galaxy did not forget either. Empires that had once looked at Earth as weak now hesitated. They saw not a small planet, but a threat hidden in plain sight. They understood that any war with humanity would not be measured in fleets or weapons, but in resolve, and resolve was something humans never lacked. The name of the sniper spread farther than any rulers, carried in hushed voices across star systems. The man himself returned to silence. He asked for no reward, no honor. He lived quietly, far from the centers of power. Yet history did not leave him. Statues were raised, books were written, and his story became the heartbeat of a new age. For children growing under the shadow of alien stars, he was the proof that humans were never helpless. For leaders, he was the reminder that courage was worth more than machines. When he passed away, the world mourned not as nations, but as one people. They did not weep because they had lost a hero, but because they had seen the measure of humanity in him. At his grave, the words were carved simple and plain: when weapons failed, it was the human eye and courage that prevailed. And across the stars, those words were remembered. Every civilization, friend or enemy, carried them in fear or in respect. For they all knew now that humanity was not to be underestimated. Not because of its machines, but because of its spirit. One shot had destroyed a fleet. One man had saved a world. And from that day forward, the galaxy lived with the knowledge that humans were never truly out of reach, never truly powerless, and never to be forgotten.